Hermione's Song, Chapter 25. An empty warehouse on the outskirts of London. 1980. The crackling energy discharge of a vortex manipulator arced from the center of the room to the metal girders high above the concrete floor. The energy coalesced into a large, glowing ball and then disappeared, leaving 3 people where it used to be. Amy Pond took in a deep breath and let go of River's hand once she appeared. Rory held on for just a moment longer until the world stopped spinning around him. Eventually, his balance came back and he let go as well. "I think I prefer the TARDIS," Rory mumbled, trying to keep his last meal down. Amy looked around the large, empty warehouse once River turned on the lights with her pocket supercomputer. Wrapping her arms around herself, Amy complained.
"It's freezing in here."
She was still wearing the thin, white hospital scrubs she had been given after she gave birth to Melody. Rory took off his red cloak and draped it over Amy's shoulders. The leather armor of his Centurion uniform kept him warm, even if it was a bit drafty at times under his leather kilt. Amy smiled warmly at her husband and kissed his hand while it was on her shoulder. She looked at River, full of questions.
"Where are we?"
Amy asked.
"Just outside London. But the real question you should ask is, when are we?"
River replied, a slightly smug look on her face. Amy rolled her eyes.
"All right, when are we?"
She repeated.
1980.
River said simply.
"What? I won't even be born for another 9 years."
Amy complained, her Scottish brogue thickening with her frustration.
"Why are we here?"
She demanded to know. As if on cue, the familiar sounds of the TARDIS materializing floated towards them from the far side of the warehouse. The doors opened, and the doctor strode out, holding a baby wrapped in a red and yellow blanket. Behind him, a young woman with bushy hair, just like River's, followed him out. The girl saw Amy and Rory and ran to them.
"Mother! Dad!"
She sighed and hugged them. Rory looked at Amy, shrugged, and hugged the girl back. Up close, he was able to see all of the similarities between her and River. River took a step backwards, careful not to touch Hermione.
"Come on, you get to see them again soon. Give them time to coo and gush over our much younger self," she
suggested. Hermione let go and smiled at River. She stepped to the side, allowing room for the doctor and the baby. Rory watched his teenage daughter standing next to her adult self. River's words from when they were investigating the Silence's ship came back to him.
"When I first met the doctor, a long, long time ago, he knew all about me. Think about that. Impressionable young girl, and suddenly this man just drops out of the sky. He's clever and mad and wonderful and knows every last thing about her. Imagine what that does to a girl."
He sighed and told himself to just accept the fact that the doctor was going to play a major part in the lives of the 2 women he loved most, his wife and his daughter. Amy could barely keep from running to the doctor and snatching the baby away from him.
Is that Melody?"
she said, her voice breaking while she took the baby from his arms.
"No, Mother, not Melody. Never Melody,"
River spoke up. Amy turned towards her, disturbed. River gave her a warm smile.
"Madame Kovarian is still looking for us, and I doubt she will ever give up. She knows about me and Melody, but not about her," she said, pointing to the baby and then Hermione. "You'll have to come up with a new name for us as well as a new last name for yourselves if you want to stay hidden," she suggested.
Amy pouted while she tried to think of a new name. Her eyes lit up when an idea hit her.
"I know, we'll call her Harmony," she
proclaimed. Rory watched the young woman and River both look like they were going to be ill. He looked down at his baby daughter and stroked her cheek. "Sorry, but I think that's too close to Melody," he told Amy. "What's with you in musical terms anyway?" he wondered. Amy narrowed her eyes at her husband.
"All right, Mr. Smarty Pants. What do you think we should name her?"
she asked sarcastically. "I think we should call her Hermione," Rory replied, the name popping into his head. Shaking her head in frustration, Amy frowned at Rory.
"You always were a Shakespeare nerd in school," she reminded him. "I'm surprised you didn't take Bill up on his offer to go back to his room the last time we met," she teased. "It's too odd of a name. I think," she started to say before she was interrupted by Hermione and River at the same time. "I love it," they exclaimed.
Truth was, Hermione had always been proud to have such a unique name. Rory decided to go with the momentum, since any sort of disagreement with Amy usually went her way. As for our last name, we should use... he said while looking at Hermione. He watched her mouth, Granger, silently. Granger! He shouted. It's my mother's maiden name. I doubt the scary eye-patch lady will think to look for us under that name, he offered. Looking down at her baby, Amy got lost in her eyes. Any thought of arguing with Rory fled as she focused all of her attention on Hermione.
Fine. Amy, Rory, and Hermione Granger,
she cooed to the baby. Rory's face suddenly looked a bit concerned. Doctor, if we're going to stay here and now, how will we get jobs? All of my nursing credentials are under my old name, he stated. Of course, I won't actually take those tests for another 20 years, but you get the idea, he added.